So the sun is bright and I'm also having allergies. So I'm going to leave my glasses on. These are actually glasses that tint. They're not sunglasses, but anyway. My channel is fairly new. One of the reasons that I picked the name Creative Frame of Mind is because I wanted to put an emphasis on creativity into my channel and also mental health, and that being a concern. And then I sort of coined the term mental self-care. When I say I coined it, I'm sure that somebody else has used it before, but that's what I sort of have on my banner for my channel. And that term makes a lot more sense to me because I'm not a therapist and I'm not a counselor or anything like that. I do not have a PhD in psychology, so mental self-care made a lot of sense to me. This is an area to talk about things in a positive way, about mental health, and just kind of get it out there. I know that the last couple of years, mental health concerns have been coming up a lot. I mean, they're always there, but it just seems like it's been heightened, you know, and it's made everybody even more aware of that kind of stuff. So for me, my mental health journey is still going on, of course. My mental health journey starts in my early 20s. I was about 19 or 20, I think, and I started to have sort of concerns, and I told my family that I wanted to see a therapist. And I mean, the 20s are just, man, I mean, the 20s are rough. They're also really fun, but they are rough. And I think for a lot of people, that's when they're sort of fleshing out identity. And I mean, there's identity in like high school level, like starting college, really. There's a carpenter bee that I do not want to hear. I think they're so. Yeah! I'm not made of wood! Go away. Dude. Okay. No, that's not making me happy. Go away. Okay. Carpenter bee. I know I'm on a porch. Find some wood. Shit. Okay, this is not making me happy. It's like, hey, you're filming. I'm going to see what I can do. Baby, will a carpenter bee sting me?
They can.
He's being really aggressive. Right where I was sitting down. Can you call the bee to you?
No.
It's ridiculous.
I'm not a carpenter bee whisperer.
This bee is being aggressive. Tipitinas. Yeah, I try to go to Tipitinas. After many viewings of The Big Easy with Dennis Quaid and Ellen Barkin. Yeah, The Big Easy. It's sort of like a crime, a drama. I don't know. My mom was like obsessed with it and thought Dennis Quaid was the hottest thing ever. Anyway, so I'd seen that. So I was aware of Tipitinas because they reference that in the movie. But like one of the restaurants I tried to go to was like the longest or one of the oldest restaurants in the country. I did that. I went to, Preservation Hall. I just had fun. I really did. It was a very fun trip. And I had a good time, and yeah, and then when I got back, she was like, yeah, you should travel some more. And I was sitting there thinking, like, I was 20, I didn't have a lot of disposable income, like, I don't know what this lady was really, I think she was like, okay, you're young, it's dumb to be depressed, I really do. And so she was a very nice person. I don't know that she was such a seasoned therapist, I don't know that she had a lot of experience. I stopped seeing her, but at the time that I was still seeing her, she recommended that I see a psychiatrist to get on medication. And the psychiatrist was, I'm just going to say gross. He just had like a sort of an icky vibe, like you wouldn't want to. He ended up prescribing me medication after just looking at her notes, and I didn't really know at the time that that's typical. Now, typically, you know, they will just look at the therapist or counselor's notes or whatever, and then they will decide to prescribe you something or whatever. They don't always even check in, and to me, that's not the best. So that was when I was really young, and I remember feeling, yeah, this is like a lesson. remember feeling like, this person did not know me and they were prescribing me serious medication. And I got it off it shortly. Like, that's what I remember. The lingering concern was that this person didn't know me and they were giving me medication. And I was 21 maybe. Like, I didn't know that's normally how it worked. That being said, I don't personally feel for me that that's the best. I feel like a psychiatrist, so a psychologist is a person that would listen to a therapist, or a doctor, like a person that has a PhD. There's also a therapist, there's also a counselor, there's a lot of people that can offer mental health assistance. But this was a practice that had, I'm pretty sure she was a counselor, and then they also had psychiatrists that could offer medication. So in the same practice, I went and saw that person, and like I said, he looked at the person I was seeing, their names, and then prescribed. I did meet with him one time, and he prescribed me medication. And I said, when I decided to get off it, I said, well, I don't really feel like you know me. And I just wasn't comfortable with it. Nobody said, hey, young person, this is kind of how it works, so let's talk about it before you get off. Like, nobody ever, really told me how the process worked. I didn't know. So I was on it for a little while, again, the aggressive, and then I went off of it. And I don't even think that they told me to taper it down. That's really scary. You should actually taper down your medication, especially mental health, antidepressants or whatever. You should reduce them. You shouldn't stop taking them all at once. Granted, I'm not a doctor, but that is what I've been told, and that's what my research has told me. Sort of an incident where I got really dizzy while driving. That clinic ended up, or that practice ended up closing up. And so that was my brief stint of antidepressants, in my 20s. I saw a therapist when I was in college because I had lost a very good friend of mine. And we were involved at the time when he passed away. And it was really sad. And he was a little bit older. I think he was 29, something like that. And it was just heartbreaking. And I had not dealt with something like that before. And so I saw a therapist at the college that I was attending. And he was a student. I think he was probably a PhD student. But I thought he was good. And I didn't continue seeing him because I was just, I think he wasn't going to be available that much longer because he was graduating. So I saw him for a while. I think he was one of the better, honestly, probably one of the better therapists that I saw. Death and work on that. And that was a difficult period, but that was one of the more healthy areas of my mental health, because I felt like I wasn't on medication or anything like that, but I did feel like I got decent help, and a lot of people kind of understood and were helpful with it. And a lot of friends and stuff were helpful during that time. I felt like that was one of my better, I took care of myself. I knew I needed to take care of myself, and I did. Fast forward to my 30s, I was like, I didn't really think it was an issue anymore. I thought, I had friends, I was doing my thing, I was living my life. I just didn't really think it was that much of an issue. I knew, I was aware of it, and I knew that there were some concerns sometimes, but I didn't really think, I kind of just thought I had it handled. I didn't, but I kind of thought I had it handled. And I ended up seeing somebody in the town where we lived, and this is kind of where the trend of lack of good self-care, or lack of good care, kind of comes in. So I saw this lady who was I believe she was a psychiatrist, and I saw her for a little while, and I remember talking to her about, I'd just been married, and it was I had some fear about, getting pregnant, and we were newly married and all the things. So I didn't know if that was going to happen. I just, I was scared about that. I think most women are probably scared about that if they haven't been, checked on. And I was early, I hadn't been into a doctor about it. I was in my early 30s. So I was like, oh no, why hasn't it happened yet? things like that. So I was a little bit scared about that. So anyway, I saw her. She was a very nice person. And, but ultimately she ended up giving me some samples of a drug. And it was a very expensive drug. And so she gave me samples. When I ran out of samples, I want to say it was like $75 a month, $80 a month, something like that. And I mean, I just had, was working. I wasn't making a ton of money. Like, it just was more than I could afford. And then we ended up looking up the medication, and it was essentially a supplementary antidepressant that really only works if you're on an antidepressant. So basically, she gave me something that probably a drug rep had, encouraged her to give out or whatever. I don't know. That's my guess. And when we looked it up, it was basically a vitamin. Like, it wasn't really even a medication. It was essentially a vitamin, a supplementary vitamin that worked when you were already on an antidepressant. So I came to this person for help. And again, I feel like because I wasn't majorly depressed, I was kind of dismissed. And when I think about that, it makes me really angry, because this is somebody that I sought their help. And again, a very nice person, warm person. I felt like I could talk to her, a very sweet demeanor, whatever. But I did not feel like she really helped me. I feel like she was trying to give me something that, her drug rep gave her this latest sample of something, and she was trying to give me some of it. And when I couldn't afford it, it was pointless. So, so I was, I don't know, I was maybe like 38 or something. And I had, so I have 2 children, and my first pregnancy was pretty, it wasn't perfect, but it was pretty easy. My second pregnancy was rough, like really rough. And I definitely felt depression coming up then. And I had some postpartum with my first, but that was pretty typical. And I was only not pregnant for about 8 months. So I have about 18 months between my girls. And so I was pregnant, a large part of 2 years, basically. And I remember the second one, it just was a really rough pregnancy. I just felt awful, and I felt awful for an extended period of time. And I just hadn't had that happen to me before. And so it just wasn't great. And I remember I got morning sickness for one day, like literally like 24 hours. And I know that's going to just, people are probably yelling at the screen right now because I know it could have been so much worse. But every other way, physically, I felt so sick all the time. And actually, I got pregnant, and I didn't seek therapy again or antidepressants or anything like that until after I had my second child. After I had my second child, that's when things got really bad. And I think, I had postpartum the first time, I believe, just highly emotional, highly tired. It's all kind of fuzzy. It really is, because you're not sleeping a lot, you're tending to a new baby, like all the things. It was very, it's kind of a blur. But I do remember crying a lot, and my poor husband having to deal with me crying and a baby crying, all the things, because your hormones are all over the place, right? So that was fun. But the second, when I was pregnant with my second daughter, it was a really hard pregnancy, and I definitely felt this sense of general dread and anxiousness and all the things afterwards. And it really hit me hard. I remember, because I used to work in Midtown Atlanta and driving on the interstate, and just feeling so anxious and tense and all the things. And I just remember thinking, this is not normal. And also, after having her, I was really having a lot of broad dread, a lot of broad worry, and the world's a horrible place, and there's this and this and this and this and this and this is why. I had it really hard, and I started seeing that therapist again, because we'd had a little bit of a break, but I'd never been on medication, and I still wouldn't get on medication for a few years. But anyway, so I remember that, and it hit me hard, and I was like, yeah, this is not great. So I started seeing my therapist again, and I didn't even really feel you can have depression and anxiety and stuff like that, and you may not feel you feel like you can handle it, it's manageable, all the things. I don't know, I just felt like I was doing okay, but when that happened, when I had my second daughter, so I was about 36 when I had my second daughter, and it just really hit me like a ton of bricks, basically. And so I had to start seeing my therapist again. And then it wasn't until she was, I want to say like 2, my youngest daughter, till she was 2. And so I brought her home and she had the flu. And so I was off of work. And it was like early in the day, and we'd gone to the doctor to confirm she had the flu. And then she was napping and all the things upstairs. And I had like a minute where I was just like at home with my little girl. She was sleeping, and I kind of had like a minute to think. And then I did this thing, which I had seen on a TV show or something like that. The newest version, I think, of One Day at a Time. Really good show. And there was a woman that the character was a vet, and she had some sort of anxiety and stuff like that she was dealing with. And one of the things that they suggested was recording your voice and seeing how you sound when you're talking, and seeing if that is an indicator that you have depression. I don't know if this is a tried and true thing. I may do some more research before I put this video up, if that's a helpful thing to do. But I did it when my daughter had the flu, and I had like 5 minutes to think. Because when they're young, it's a whirlwind or tornado, a hurricane, all it's a lot of stuff, and you're just tired and you're just kind of getting through it, right? And so when I had that minute to think, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna record my voice. And when I listened to it, I was like, oh, I'm depressed. So I was seeing a therapist, all the things. I was doing what I should have been doing to take care of myself, because I knew I had concerns with that. And so I was still seeing a therapist, and it was kind of up and down, but I didn't necessarily think I was in an area of depression. So back to it, and it was very clear to me that I was dealing with depression. So I went, I saw my therapist again, and I was like, yeah. And that was the first time, I was talking to her. I was like, yeah, I think this is where I'm at. I think I would like to get on medication. So I was not on medication until my late 30s, early 40s, I guess. And yeah. So I've only been on it for like 4 or 5 years now. And to me, it was a game changer. It really helped. And I saw a specialist. I saw a psychiatrist, because I had seen lots of other doctors that I, talked about, and that I didn't really get the help that I needed. So I went and saw somebody that was very highly rated in the Atlanta area. And I saw him several times, which is what I needed. Like, me personally, I needed to feel like the person that giving me medication had to know something about me. They had to check in, and their setup for the practice that I went to was that they don't consider for like 2 years. They don't consider you to be past that hump for like 2 years. So they do check in on you and things like that. And that's really what I needed to feel like I was getting, the care that I needed. And so now I'm still on the same medication from that psychiatrist, and I was still seeing my regular therapist as well. And I feel like it really helped. I also feel like you should advocate for yourself, and you should think about the things that you're taking, and not just blindly take medication that you're given, So that's how I feel about it anyway. I mean, people are allowed to feel how they feel, but that's kind of how I see it. And it's just been interesting. So now, having been on medication for a few years now consistently, I do kind of wonder, like, it has been a big help to me. So I do kind of wonder, could I have accomplished more if I had been on medication, in my 30s, 20s and 30s? And I kind of feel like, yes, I probably could have. But, you can't rewind the clock or whatever. And all of that stuff led me to a life that I really love, and, a wonderful husband and 2 beautiful kids and all those things. So it is what it is, I guess. And that kind of led me to where I ultimately am happy and all that. Now, am I perfect? Do I not deal with anything anymore? No. I do. I definitely deal with it. But for the time being, I feel like I'm in a better place. And, you know, I feel like taking care of myself, paying attention to my mental health is an ongoing process. It's not something that necessarily gets immediately resolved. And I am a work in progress, and that's okay. So I want you to know if you're dealing with some things, if you're dealing with, you know, anxiety, depression, and all that stuff, it's a work in progress, and you deserve to get the help that you need, and you deserve to get good care, and you should, you know, ultimately it's what you want, and you can do your research or talk to a doctor about it or whatever, you know, and kind of come to your own conclusions. Obviously, it's your life, and you know, it's what you want to do for yourself. I would love to hear about your mental health journey, the kind of obstacles that you faced, or the wins that you had, and positive experiences, the negative experiences. I'd love to hear about, you know, kind of what you guys have gone through in your own mental health journey. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you tune in to Creative Summer Fun in the future for more, you know, videos on mental health and all the things that go with it. I really hope this is engaging content, because it's one of the main things I wanted to do on my channel. So I hope that you guys respond to it. And anyway, thank you so much for watching. Bye.